Today, we will use a couple of blocks if you have them. And if you don't, you can use anything that just is a prop for you, like a stool, a piece of furniture. You'll be able to make do, a blanket. Let's grab a strap just to have it and a chair, all right? And we're gonna start seated, and you can sit however you would like to sit, okay? You might wanna sit in what's called Sukhasana, which is called easy pose. That's cross-legged, but you don't have to. You could always prop yourself as well, or you could sit in a different position. Right? You can use something behind your back for support if you'd like. And just get yourself oriented to your space where you are. Maybe take a couple of sighs. And when you're ready to let your eyes settle on one spot, go ahead and do so. You can either let them close or you can just look down or ahead of you. You might feel your breath as it comes in and as it goes out, noticing where you feel it the most right now. Inviting yourself to soften. So softening physically, like through the shoulders, the jaw, the eyes. And also inviting in a softening of your mind or your attitude or perspective, perhaps. So a sense of being here with your yoga practice just as it is today, without trying to force anything, and putting in just enough effort. Allowing yourself to be however you are today, right? Not forcing anything. And letting go of any outcome or desired outcome. Being open to what is. And as you're ready to, you could begin to focus on a sense of fluidity with your breath, meaning just breathing in and breathing out, letting it be fluid and easy rather than forced. And if it feels fluid to you, to begin to widen your breath on the inhale and to lengthen the breath on the exhale, then go for it. Good, and then as you're ready, let's inhale and reach your arms up. And exhale, bring them down any way you want. It could be out to the sides or it could be through the center. And let's do a few more of those. Okay, so you go with your own breath here. Good. Then the next time you bring your arms down, just pause for a moment. Take a breath in and out. Notice how your shoulders feel. Good, and now we'll take the arms up again. And as we exhale, just exhale and twist to your right. And I'll twist to my right. You can bring one arm, that right arm behind your back, and the left arm across if you want. And then as we inhale, let's come back to the center. So just let this be flowing for you. There's no right or wrong way to do it. But we're trying to focus on this sense of fluidity, or have as our intention a sense of fluidity throughout our movements. You can go side to side if you haven't already. That's what I've been doing. I might not have told you that. Good. And when you feel like you've had enough of the twisting back and forth, you can come back to the center and pause for a moment. And just feel your breath go in and out. All right, and now let's do some circles with the torso. And if you're still twisting, you can stick with that. Just allowing yourself to move in ways that feels right. You're taking my suggestions if you want to, and then circling the opposite way. And this time as you're circling, they might start out kind of big, and then let's start to circle right into the center, like you're spiraling into an upright seated position. Finding that center line between your sit bones until that movement is almost imperceptible. Good. And then once you get there, let's inhale. Let's roll the shoulders, or you can squeeze and release them. Good. And then let's move the neck some. Okay, so you can relax your shoulders when you're ready. We'll inhale in the center and exhale, turn your head to one side. And inhale to center. And then to the other side as you exhale. Noticing how the neck feels on each side. And when you get back to center the next time, now we'll tip one ear down slightly to the side and up, and just repeat, going back and forth slowly, really being gentle with all this area that can get kind of cranky. And then when you're back in the center, let's go up and down with the chin. Again, slowly, so that you respect your boundaries with your neck. And still allowing the breath to be fluid. And when you come back to the center now, let's spiral. So it's as if you had a pen on the end of your nose, and each circle that you make with your head is getting a little bit bigger. And you get to decide how big that is. And when you get to your widest spiral, we'll reverse, and now each circle gets a little bit smaller. Good, until you get right back in the middle. Inhaling and exhaling. Notice if you can soften anywhere. And then let's take the feet out in front. And if you've been leaning against a piece of furniture or wall, you'll want to scoot away now. Just going to put the feet in front. You can prop your hands up behind. Now, if you can go as wide as feels okay, and begin to windshield wiper the knees side to side. Now, they might go all the way down, like I'm showing here, or they might not if that doesn't feel right. Okay? Now, if you want to make this a bigger movement, you can transition into a swivel seat where you come all the way onto one side, and then you might even reach and twist. Any trajectory of a twist is fine. And so doing what feels good in your body, trying to stick with this intention of fluid movement, fluid breath. Good. And Now let's come back to the center and onto our hands and knees for cat and cow pose. So if you can't bear weight on your knees in a tabletop position, you could do this seated in a chair. Okay, or seated on the floor if you'd like. Okay, so wrists below shoulders. Let's inhale, tilt tail up, and exhale and round. So do a couple just however you do them, all right? And then what we'll try to do is come back to a neutral position, and we'll start to move with the tail first. So you're in neutral. Let's begin to tuck the tail under, but don't let your head move until the very last moment. So you might need to take more than one breath. So it's like a fluid, like a wave moving up your spine. Head comes down last. And now let's move the tail first again. So I'm in my rounded position. I'm going to tilt my tail up and watch through my legs here with my head down as I move like a wave up my spine, head coming up last. Let's try a few like these. To go that slowly requires me to use more than one breath. Of course, you could always be on forearms, and you can do this seated as well. You don't have to be on your knees. Now, if you want to add in any other movements, I'm just going to add them in. I might move my ribs around. I might move my hips around, right? You could be on your forearms. So again, I'm just going with the intention of fluid movement, right? Exploratory fluid movement here. Letting my breath be continuous. And then coming back to the center, I'm going to inhale, tilt tail up, and exhale, start to sit back to child's pose. And repeat. So you could inhale, come up. And so I'll show this in a chair, seated as well, if you can't bear weight on your knees. Of course, you can always pad the knees or put a blanket behind them. But what I'm doing is I'm tilting tail up and sitting back on the exhale. And as I rise, I'm going to round my spine and come up. Okay, now keep going if that feels okay. And if you want to do it in a chair, it would look more like this. So I would tilt my tail up and fold over my legs. And then I would round using my hands on my knees to sit back up. And I would repeat, right? So I'm folding over the legs, tilting tail up, and then rounding to rise. Okay, so that's how you could do it in a chair. Now, some people might like to add in a cobra pose, obviously not in the chair. This would be on the floor. Okay, so as you came up, you could start to bring yourself down onto your forearms or your hands, and then taking a couple breaths, pressing up and going back. Okay, so now you're coming forward and back from child's pose through cat pose, all the way down onto the belly. Okay. If you're on the chair seated, you just stick with your forward folds. You're trying to find or experiment with this sense of fluidity. Okay, now let's pause back in tabletop. Again, if you can't do tabletop, you can do this seated in the chair, and I'll show you in a moment. So we're going to be in tabletop here, and I'm going to inhale, reach my right arm up, And exhale, and twist to the right. And exhale, I'm going to start to bend my left arm and thread my right arm through, bringing the side of my head down. And I'm going to repeat. So I inhale, reach up, and exhale, thread through. Keep going. If you can't bear weight on the knees, you can do this seated in the chair by hinging forward. Maybe I should show it from the side. Hinging forward, forearm on thigh, and I inhale, reach up to the right, and I exhale. I might have to lift my left elbow and kind of twist over to the left and repeat. Actually, I think hand on knee works better in the chair. Okay, now the next time after you thread, let's come back to the center. Okay, so you're either in tabletop or I'm showing it on the chair now. Now we'll switch sides. We'll inhale, reach the left arm up, and exhale, threading it through. And right, and repeat. Okay, a few more times. Now the next time you thread through, let's come back to the center. If you're seated in the chair, just stay there, okay? We're going to protract and retract. So we're going to find fluidity with our shoulder blades. All right, so I'll remind you guys that are on hands and knees, and then I'll show it in the chair. I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together, that's retract, letting the head just be relaxed, and then I'm separating these shoulder blades, widening them, that's the protract. And your neck is just in neutral. You could look a little bit ahead on the floor, or you could relax the neck. You can see what works best for you. In the chair, just put your arms out in front, and do the same thing. If you've already done this a bunch of times and you're ready to, you could also try rolling the shoulder blades, just like you would roll the shoulders seated in a chair. So you're just rolling it around, you move through all the positions here, and then reverse and roll in the opposite way. It's different than just sitting and rolling the shoulders, but you could do it that way with your arms out in front. You can also do this on forearms, which is a great exercise if your wrists are bothering you, because it's a little bit trickier. It does things differently. Good. All right. Now, from here, let's come onto our feet. So if you're in the chair, you can stand. If you're on the floor, walking your hands back. You could roll up your spine, tailbone toward heels. And when you get to a standing position, you could inhale and reach those arms up. And exhale, arms out to the sides and down. And let's do that a couple more times, okay? So just gonna inhale, go up. And exhale, out and down. Good, one more. Good, and then just kind of shake it out a little bit. Let's do a few bounces. This will be like that, maybe like the power plate that she was mentioning. I don't know, I have to look it up. But you know, you just bounce, 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 like you're on a trampoline. You don't have to jump off the floor, but you can if you want to. Good, and then pause. And when you pause, you can let your eyes close or you can keep your eyes open and going into the felt sense of your body right now. Following your breath in and following your breath out. Good, one more breath. Good. And then as you're ready, we're going to bring the chair toward the front of your mat. I'm going to show this flowing movement, more fluidity, two ways. The first way is going to be without putting knees on the floor. And then the second way will be with knees on the floor. So you'll probably want knee padding for that and your blocks, okay, if you have them. I'm also going to show it with the chair seat as an option for the blocks. Okay, so I'm just getting all that stuff ready. First, we're going to do no knees on the floor, so you know what to do if that's what you need to do. All right, feet parallel. And when you're ready, let's inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, hinge at the hips. We'll take hands to the chair. And inhale, extend your spine forward. So here, we're going to stay here for the exhale. Here, we're looking for a neutral spine. Okay, so meaning I'm not rounded. So if to touch the seat of the chair, you have to round, try bending your knees, taking your weight into your heels so that you might be able to get a neutral spine. All right. Now, I'm going to inch my feet just toward the center a little bit. They don't have to touch. Okay. Weight is in the heels. I'm going to inhale and take my right leg back and up. So my knee goes up. And I can even lift my chest, maybe. And then exhale, I'm going to round my spine and bring my knee in the direction of my forehead, but it's not going to touch. And then I'm going to repeat. Inhale, back leg up. I might arch my back a little bit. And exhale, round and bring it forward. Let's do one more. Now, I don't have much weight on my hands at all, so it's not bothering my wrists because there's very little weight there, okay? Just for balance. After your third one, let's step that leg down next to the other one, okay? So step side to side a little bit, wiggle around if you need to. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. First, getting weight in the heels, reaching chest forward, little weight on the hands. And then inhale, the other leg goes back and up. I might arch my back. And exhale, round, bring knee forward 2 more times. Good, and then stepping down. Let's wiggle around a little bit. All right, now here's the option for the floor. You can get your knee padding and you take your hands to your blocks. You could also take them to your chair if that were better for you, but I think the blocks will work out a little bit better. Now, if you don't know that you can't put weight on your knees, then you just do what you just did, okay? Again, I'm even gonna put my blocks a little lower. They're on the low height. You could do this with your forearms as well, all right? So I'm gonna inhale, right knee back and up. I might arch my back, and then I'm going to exhale, round, bring my knee toward my nose, and repeat. 3 times. You could also do this forearms on higher blocks if your wrists are bothering you. Good. After your third one, putting the knee down, wiggle around if you need to, or make some circles with the hips if your knees are on the floor. I'm going to show it on forearms this time. My forearms are on medium height blocks. I'll inhale, arch my back, left knee up. Exhale, round, bringing the knee forward, and repeat. So we're moving through flexion and extension of the hip and the spine here. Good, and then coming back to neutral, you can either, if you're on your feet already, you can come into a chair downward dog, okay? If you're on the floor and you want to do a floor down dog, feel free. Adho Mukha Shavasana is the Sanskrit. The chair version looks like this. Take a couple more breaths there. Can move around however you'd like to move. If you want to bend one knee and the other or shift your hips.
One more breath there. Good, and then slowly walking toward the front of your mat or your space. And inhale, reaching your chest forward. Exhale to bend the knees. And inhale to stand up, reaching your arms way up. And exhale, arms out to the sides and down. And either moving into a swing and a twist, or a hula hoop, or any other movement that your body feels like it wants. Okay. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing again, not the same movement, but the same idea. Well, we're gonna start with knees off the floor and then I'll show a knees down option. So I'm gonna move my blanket out of the way and stand at the front of the mat. Inhale, arms up. And exhale, gonna bring my arms out and step my left leg back with my right knee forward. Doesn't matter if your heel is up or down in the back, but if you can have the heel up, go for it. So that's a crescent lunge rather than a warrior one. Feet are hips distance. If your balance needs help, put your chair next to you or something else, okay? And what I'm gonna do is tuck my tail and then untuck it. Tuck it and then untuck it. You'll see I'm bending my knee too, just to help me do it. Okay, so I'm tucking it under, I'm untucking it. Good. Okay, now, if you feel okay to do so, you could take your hands behind your head. Now, of course, you could put your heel down if that feels better, or have the wall next to you. I'm gonna inhale, I'm gonna untuck my tail, I'm gonna lift my chest a little bit, spread my elbows, and I'm gonna exhale, round my spine, bend my back knee, elbows around, and repeat. And moving your head around this might mess with your balance. So just noticing. Let's do one more. Good. And then once you come up, just exhale, step forward. Kind of shift around. We'll do the second side. So inhale, arms up. Exhale, arms out. And they can come to the hips if you want to step the right leg back. Just get yourself organized, feet hips distance apart. Back heel might be lifted. And first we're just gonna practice the tuck and untuck, right? So it's like the pelvis, the untuck, the pelvis tilts forward, the front of it does, and the tail's up. And then you tuck it under, bend the knee, the tail tucks under, right? Let's try that a few times. And then when you're ready, you can try to add the arms. Okay, so inhale, lift, exhale, round. You're trying to stabilize through the feet. Last one. Once you lift, exhale, step it forward. Good. And just notice, where you felt that. Like for me, I felt a lot going on in my calf. My calves were tight, right? You might have felt something totally different. So if you can't bear weight on the knees, you'll do that version again. Otherwise, I'm going to put my knee padding down, stand toward the front, got my blocks and my chair available. Inhale, arms up. Exhale and fold. Inhale, chest forward. Exhale, left knee and foot. We'll step back and bring the knee down to your padding. Now, you could have your blocks handy, okay? Or you could have your chair on your side or wherever you need it. I've got my back toes tucked because it helps me balance. Okay, my back hip is over my back knee. You could, let's stay here and do the tuck and untuck of the tail a few times. You could always put a big pillow below that knee too, or a folded up blanket. Okay, and once you feel like you've got that, We're gonna untuck. You can take your hands behind your head if you want. And then as I round, you can round as much as you want. Now you could always use the chair for support in all of this, right? It could look more like this. Without your hands behind your head. See how I'm doing the same thing, but I just don't have my hands behind my head, right? Good, then next time you lift, we'll exhale to bring that front knee back and switch sides. Now, if you're standing, you just step forward and switch sides. We'll start again stabilizing, right? Getting your feet oriented, seeing how you can balance if you need more support. And we'll just do the tucking and untucking of the tail a few times. Just noticing what that feels like. Okay, and then if you want to add the arms, I'm going to show the chair way first, where I just hold the seat of the chair in front of me and I do the untucking and tucking, but I'm going to add more of my spine in. So I'm getting spinal flexion and some extension. You could also do it hands behind head. Good. And then when you're finished, if you're standing, you just step forward. If you're on the floor, we'll take hands to the chair, lift the back knee and step the leg forward. Inhale, reach chest forward. Exhale, bend the knees, weight toward heels. Inhale to rise. And exhale, arms out and down. All right. Move around however you'd like to. You could swing and twist. I'm just getting my blanket off my mat. You could hula hoop. All right, so we were talking before we began the session just about some proper form for squatting and deadlifting, because we were talking about how weightlifting is one of the best proven methods for increasing bone density, right? And there can be some issues if you're not doing the form correctly, because you can just end up with other injuries. So we're just going to work on a little bit, just using our body weight, of course. I only say of course because we're just in yoga, so we don't have any weights right now. So let's start with, and these are great hip movements, hip mobility movements, all sorts of things, okay? So we're going to start with one kind of squat. There are so many kinds of squats. I'm going to just show you one way. You might want to have, in fact, let's do it. Let's take the back of your chair, or if you're at home and you have a heavier piece of furniture or a counter, that could work too, to have in front. So I've got a high thing in front of me rather than the seat. Don't need the blocks for this one. I'm going to take my feet about shoulders distance apart for this, but it doesn't matter how wide. Okay, so you can decide how wide you want them. And for this kind of squat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hips back and start bending the knees any amount. Now, I'm going to pause when I get there. My weight is in my heels. See how I'm toe tapping? For this kind of squat, there are kinds of squats where you have your knees forward, okay? That's not what we're doing, okay? Right here. Now, you could always go down further, but I'm trying to keep my knees as wide as my feet, right? And then I'm going to stand. And when you stand, I'm not going to press the hips forward, but I am going to tighten my butt muscles just for practice, okay? And then again, so I'm going to inhale, go down the elevator, and exhale, stand, right? Now, some people might go further. Let's just do one more, because then I'm going to tell you some things. Good, and then just pause. So a couple of things. I can't see all of you, but I can see some of you. It seems like you're doing this just fine. But a couple of things to watch out for with squatting, this kind of squat, is some people tend to avoid knee bending. They tend to bring their chest down a lot. Okay, I don't see anybody doing that that's here, but I see that all the time. So you might find that you're doing more of that as you go down, right? See how I'm really hinging at my hips. Try to avoid that. So we're trying to, as you hinge at the knee, there is some hinge at the hip, but just enough to counteract it, right? I'm trying to keep like what we call a proud chest, where my chest is wide and broad rather than round. Okay. The next thing has to do with that broad chest, proud chest. A lot of people will squat, they'll go down too far, and then they end up having to do this with their backs, which is going to put a lot of pressure here, especially if you're holding weights when you do it, okay? So we're going to try to keep that broad chest and only go down as far as feels okay, where you can keep this. You can always look in a mirror too. Let's try one more set just of these squats, okay? And as we do it, one more thing, as we do it, you've got your hip joint is here. A lot of people think it's out here, but it's actually here, okay? There is the greater trochanter is out here. There's something there. It's just not the joint, okay? You've got the ball of your hip joint or your femur bone comes in like this. I mean, kind of like this, I'm just making do. And when you hinge at the hips, it rolls back. So the hip joint goes back, and when you come up, that ball just comes back to neutral. So it kind of rolls back in the socket, sits into the socket, and then comes back to neutral. If you were to tuck your tail under and try to squat, it wouldn't be happening, would it? It wouldn't be going back, that ball into the socket. It's still pushing forward, okay? So you want to feel that. All right, now let's try 3 or 5 more, whatever you're ready to. You can. It's always fun to kind of hold on to something because you can really lean back when you hold on to something. Remember that squeeze of the glutes when you come up. And you want to make sure your knees feel good, right? They're not hurting when you're doing this, okay? So you don't go down far if it's hurting. Okay, good. All right, now we've got another move called the deadlift, right? And there's a few kinds of deadlifts, and the deadlifts are more of a hip hinge. So let's work on our hip hinge. We did it with child's pose and seated in the chair. So a hip hinge means that your pelvis is hinging around that femur bone, right? Got the socket? It's hinging. So the chest is going down. Now, most people are pretty tight in the backs of the legs, so there'll be a point where they can't hinge anymore without rounding, right? And that's when you start bending the knees. But also you bend the knees in a deadlift too. So it's like this. Okay, so you hinge, and then you bend. And it's like you're picking up something. In fact, I should have had you pick up something. And then when you stand up, you press down through the heels to come up. So if you have something you can pick up, like your blocks, we can use those as though they were weights. Feet are pretty wide. You can get your toes up to the blocks if you're using blocks. Go really slowly with me. We're going to hip hinge. Okay, so the hips go back. Send the hips to the wall behind you. Send the hips to the wall behind you. Then bend the knees. Keep the chest proud, okay? And pick up your item. Now to come up, press down through the heels to rise. So you can imagine it's a really heavy item, and now I'm holding it, right? And to lower it, the first thing I'm going to do is hip hinge. I'm going to send my butt to that back wall, so my weight's really in my heels. And then I'm going to bend my knees, keeping my chest proud. And then to come up, I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to press my heels down to rise up. Okay? So you can see the difference between the deadlift and the squat. Hopefully, it gives you a little introduction to the difference. And you can do one-legged deadlifts, which we've done here before with blocks. All right, and then let's let that go. All right, just let the blocks go, shake it out a little bit.
and stand. We're going to do Vrksasana or tree pose next. So you can use your wall again, your wall if you want, at your side or behind your back. But before we stand on one leg, let's notice the fluidity of your breath. So we kind of went out of fluid motion a little bit to do a little learning, right, about form. Let's start to come back into it now. Okay, so following your breath in and out, letting your eyes soften, letting your jaw soften, your shoulders soften. Can you stay fluid with your breath and feel an expansion of the torso on the inhale? Can you stay fluid as you exhale long? You could use your Ujjayi breath or a pursed lip exhale. Good. And then whenever you're ready, you can bring one leg forward and or turn it out. And it could be in a kickstand on the floor, on your ankle, it could be your calf, it could be up higher. Okay, any version of tree pose. Just trying to stay lifted out of your standing leg. Using just the right amount of effort for you today. Good, and then whenever you're ready, let's bring the knee forward and down. And then let's do the second side. Okay. Inhale, stand tall, focal point. Exhale, fluidly bring the other leg up and maybe turn it out. Any height, I'll do the floor version this time. Staying lifted out of your standing hip in any arm position. Just enough effort. Good. And when you're ready, coming down, shake it out a little bit or bounce here. All right. I'm going to turn the seat towards you at the front of your mat again. Standing in front of it, let's inhale to reach your arms up and exhale to fold. Inhale to extend your spine forward. And exhale, let's step back to downward facing dog. You can have hands on chair or floor. Keeping the breath fluid if you can. Good. And then as you're ready, you can start to come down onto the floor and just have your strap close by. Might like to have your blanket below your head and neck. Coming down into constructive rest pose. Just pause for a moment. Finding that fluidity of breath again, if you can. Good.
And then as you're ready, you could bring that right knee in and hold behind the leg. And straighten and bend the leg a few times. And then taking your strap and placing it around the bottom of your foot. You could always use a towel, you could use a shirt, anything you've got to extend your arms. You could have your left leg bent or straight. Hold the strap however feels best to you. And let's stay here for about 5 slow breaths, nice and fluid, nice and soft. And then slowly releasing as you're ready. You might straighten out both legs on the floor for a moment to notice the difference in sensation. And then as you're ready, could bring the left knee in, holding behind the leg and bending and straightening a couple of times. And then placing the strap. Your right leg can be bent or straight. Taking about 5 fluid breaths. Good. And then as you're ready, you can release and set your strap to the side. And if there's any other movements your body would like right now, feel free to do them. So that might be twisting, that might be knees into belly, or anything else. Figure 4 stretch. Right. Good. And then coming into a restorative position, whether it's Shavasana or something else, when you're ready. Your shoulders away from your ears. Let me take a sigh or two. And picturing yourself lying here as though you were looking down on yourself from above. And noticing how much can you let go of effort here. Effort in your mind, effort in your body. can just notice the breath coming in and out without having to control it. Noticing the natural fluidity of your breath. If you enjoy floating in water, if that's something that's a positive thing for you, you could even imagine that.